Today's topic is on accessibility. As we've spoken about, it's very important to know who your users are. Are they students? Are they customers? Are they male, female, naive, savvy? Like, are they experts at the system or newbies? Um, and are they children? Are they elderly? And are they disabled? So, what is accessibility? I'm going to read you this quote. Accessibility is about ensuring an equivalent user experience for people with disabilities, including people with age related impairments. For the web, accessibility means that people with disabilities can perceive, understand, navigate, and interact with websites and tools, and that they can contribute equally without barriers. So, it's ensuring everybody gets an equal experience. True or false, up to 1 million people in the world have some form of disability. This is false. It's over 1 billion people in the world. Disabilities are really, really common. And that's why, as designers, it's important to keep in mind that people using your applications, your web applications or mobile applications or whatever it is that you design, may have different types of disabilities, and you need to make it accessible for everyone. Universal design is designed for as many people as possible. So, for example, designing a ramp, it can help wheelchairs, but it can help more than wheelchairs. What about strollers and pushing strollers? Here, there's another example. 1952 airplane cockpits were originally designed for the average pilot, but a pilot, may not. People aren't average. What if they're too big, too small? So that's not a great way to do it. So the solution was adjustable seats, and this way everyone could adapt. Instead of saying, well, let's just design it for the average person, it's let's design it for everybody, so everyone could actually fit well. A large disabled population uses web pages and technology, and therefore, it's very important for us to understand how we can improve the user experience for everybody. There's WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So there's a wide range of recommendations, and for people with disabilities, and some examples are people who are blind, with low vision, deaf or hearing loss, learning disabilities, limited movement, speech disabilities. And the 4 principles that we're going to talk about for web accessibility are perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. So we're going to do the first one first, which is perceivable. So what does perceivable mean? That information and user interface components must be presentable to users in ways they can perceive. So in other words, I'm going to give example. I always find the best way to explain anything is with examples. So if a web page includes images, a person who is blind can't see the images, of course. So this is why we have alternative text. And if you've ever created a web page, you'll have that alt tag. And one of the reasons for it, it's also convenient when an image just isn't there, isn't loading, and and then the alt tag, what you put for the alternative text, comes up. But there's other reasons it's good too, and one of the reasons is for screen readers. Now, someone might not be able to see the image, but it can say, "Oh, this is an image of Northeastern Illinois University's logo," or whatever the example is. So, alternative text is really important for someone who can't see the images, so that they can have a similar feel of the web page. Another example: web pages often include audio or video. A person who is deaf can't hear it. So this is why you need captions. Videos should have captions, transcripts, and ways for people who may not be able to hear to have the same experience and be able to read it and read what they're saying. Color. Now, color is nice, but it shouldn't be the only way to convey information, because what if someone's colorblind and they can't distinguish between certain colors? Then we have a problem. Then you have a problem because you didn't make your webpage accessible for those who are colorblind. So these are just some examples, and I'm going to talk more about the examples in the next few slides. So we mentioned this alt tag. Now, the alt attribute is an alternative way to get information for an image. And here I'm going to show you an example on the next slide. So you can see, this is the Northeastern Illinois University logo. And you can see the alt tag says Northeastern Illinois University logo. And this way, if it didn't display, or a screen reader can read it using the alt. Now, I want you to try. You can click this link to hear how a screen reader goes. Or if you have a Mac, you can press Command F5. You can turn on your screen reader. I want you to hear a little bit how a screen reader is so that you'll be able to kind of understand how it is for people who use screen readers. So take a moment and do that. Now, deaf users. Here we spoke about captions, and if you're relying only on audio on a web page, you shouldn't, because what if someone is deaf? So this is why you want to have like redundant information, and you want to be able to have captions and transcripts and ways, or perhaps, sign language, a video of sign language. So for someone who can't hear, they can have a way to get the same equal experience. Now, the last one we mentioned was color. People are colorblind, and we said 4.5% of people. Now here, so this is how you can do something in two ways. If you used the first example, you can see how there's two ways to get things done around here. The second method, also shown in red, is preferred. Now you have two ways, because you have the numbering, 1, 2, and you have the color. But in the second example, if someone is colorblind, it says there's two ways to get things done. The preferred method is shown in red. Now, if you didn't have the numbering 1, 2, and it says the preferred method is shown in red, well, how do you know which is the preferred method? We don't. And this is why it's good to have two different ways. Don't just rely on color alone, but in the first example, we use the numbers as well. Here's another example. You can see in the first example, it's relying on color alone. But in the second example, there's also different types of shading. Like you can see the dashed lines and the dots, so that if someone is colorblind, they can still distinguish between the different bars. So now I want you to try this activity. You can actually modify colorblind settings on your computer, on your phone, and there's different ways to play with it. And I want you to try modifying your settings so that you can view how it is to be colorblind. Our next principle is operable. User interface components and navigation must be operable. So what does that mean? If a web page has buttons that requires you to click with a mouse, that's great if you can use a mouse, but what if someone has physical disabilities? A mouse can be really tricky. So all controls should also be able to be operable with a keyboard as well. And here, I want you to try this little accessibility demo where you can see with links, you can use tabs, because there's a default tab index that allows you, if you go to a web page, you can hit tab and enter, and you can get to it as well. And I'm going to post videos showing this as well. And then you have an access key is also a way where you can code an access key, and then someone can hit like, shift and the letter, and shift alt and the access key. And I'll show you that in another video as well. So there's different ways where you don't actually need a mouse, but you could have the same experience by using your keyboard only. Our third principle is understandable. Information and the operation of user interface must be understandable. And my examples are: make text content readable and understandable, make web pages appear and operate in predictable ways, and help users avoid and correct mistakes. So this is make things understandable, help users, and that was our third principle. Our fourth principle is robust. Content must be robust enough that it can be interpreted reliably by a wide variety of user agents, including assistive technologies. Here's an example: HTML. Have start and end tags. IDs are unique. Elements are nested appropriately. So this is where you have content that is robust and good, and there's ways to do it that makes it better. So here are my examples. In HTML, you have the H1, H2, so you have headers. Now of course you could make things big and you don't technically need a header, but it's much more accessible if you do things with the HTML tags themselves. Tables can be confusing when you read with a screen reader, but if in your code for an HTML table, you put TH instead of just the TDs. And I don't know if everyone knows web design, but for those who do, the TDs are the little columns, but the H would be for the header one, and that's very helpful for the screen reader. Later they know which is what is the header that is associated with that one. You can also validate HTML pages, and it's very important to validate it because the HTML5 validator will check for any mistakes that you make that will interfere with screen readers. Forms too. So forms, it's a good practice to have labels and using the label tag and making them associated, so you know which label is with which input box, and making sure the user can submit the form and recover from errors. That when you give the message that tells them which errors they made, that's very helpful as well. And you can have some links for more information on that. And here's another link for accessibility guidelines that you can check out. And a little exercise I like to do is go to web pages and put their URLs of like the common web pages. Maybe you're on Facebook a lot, or Instagram, or any I use website, or Google, and put the URLs into here and check if it contains errors on accessibility, and see how many errors it does. So put in some sites that you use often. There's some other site checkers and some other accessibility links that you can check out on your own.